We on? Great. I'll bring this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Representative Almand. Present. Representative Angelos.
Here.
Representative Harrelson. Here. Representative Pendergraft.
Here.
Representative Sherwood.
Here.
Representative Smith.
Here.
Senator Driscoll. Here. Senator Garou. Here. Senator Larson. Here. Senator Smith. Here. Co-Chairman Bear. Here. Chairman Salazar. Here. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Senator Garou, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Representative Angelos, could you lead us in prayer?
Lord, we thank you for today. We thank you for being able to do your work and do your will and do the will of the people of Wyoming. We pray for direction, your guidance, and your wisdom today over this meeting and over what we have our hands to do and what we do today to protect the state of Wyoming. We thank you so much. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. So I'll call on Mr. Richards to just kind of give us where we're at and what we need to accomplish today and fill us in. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the committee. You have addressed all of the agency requests and the governor's recommendations, the governor's letters, court letters, executive branch letters, and letters from your colleagues in standing committees. You are now going to look at agencies that had not presented a supplemental budget and see if there are any changes. At the very end, we will also have either a placeholder or amendment or a suggested amendment for a balancing. That will be the last amendment of the day. And I suspect that will change in one house on the floor, just to give you a preview. And the reason why one house on the floor is to ensure that we have a difference to allow for the Joint Conference Committee to work within the two chambers' amounts. I believe there are also a handful of questions of members from prior amendments to ensure that the staff have the further direction or modification to those. We have a list. Certainly any member can bring or raise a amendment on their own. And the first agency we have on our list is Agency 24, the Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources. Again, this agency had no supplemental requests.
Okay. Co-Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. I would like to move this amendment that reduces the Parks and Cultural Resources by $3.38756 million. This is the funds that were previously appropriated in the last budget for the Arboretum in Cheyenne. It was actually $3.5 million, and that department has spent a couple $100,000 doing a study. I believe that study says that it's going to be about $20 million for the state to operate this Arboretum and to get it back up to condition where it can be ran as an Arboretum. So I recommend that this body, the state, not take over that Arboretum, and this would bring those funds back into the general fund.
So is there a second? Second, any discussion? Senator Driscoll.
Mr. Chairman, not sure if anyone can answer that. Where are we at? Is the state taking it over, or is it still in federal hands? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I believe it is being operated by the state under an agreement with the city. So it's at the local level now, and I believe I don't think the state has title to it, and I could be wrong, but I think it is administering or funding the operations through an agreement with the city of Cheyenne.
Senator Garou. Oh, wait, follow up?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
follow up. How long has the city had it? I know it was under a lease or an agreement to start with. Do they actually own it now? Have we got them in a place that we've committed them to something and now we're going to back out of it?
Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, I don't know the status of the contract between the federal government, USDA, and the city.
Senator Garou.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Co-Chair, could you give me that number one more time?
Absolutely. That is 3 $5,338,756. Those are the unexpended funds.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wondering, do we have paper copies of any of these amendments that could be handed out for the committee to be able to look at? Is that an option?
Okay, we're working on that. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Let me hold up for just a minute until that's passed out so you can take a quick look at it. Thank you, Catherine. I'll give the committee a minute here to review this amendment on a hard copy. So, Mr. Co-Chair, just one last time, can you repeat your amendment while they're kind of reviewing it?
Absolutely, Mr. Co-Chair. So this would delete entirely the expenditure for 3.5 million and then insert $161,244, which is the expended funds that went into the study that told us that it was going to be about $20 million to get this thing brought back to a condition where it could be operated. And after that, we have language that says it is the intent of the legislature that this appropriation not be included in the Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources standard budget for the immediately succeeding fiscal biennium.
Okay. Any other discussion before we take a vote? All those in favor of, I'm sorry, Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, I'm going to be a no on this because I have constituents who have reached out to me over the summer indicating that they support the Arboretum becoming a state park and feel that it's good for our tourism economy. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor of this amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. That motion carries. Next.
Mr. Chairman, the next agency we're aware of that with amendments is Agency 85. This is the Wyoming Business Council, specifically related to business-ready communities.
Mr. Co-Chair?
Yes, Mr. Co-Chair, please go ahead.
Mr. Co-Chair, I move that we reduce the Wyoming Business Council Business Ready Communities Program by $14,375,000. And if I could ask Mr. Richards to please bring up my notes as to the original, inform the committee of the original appropriation from the previous budget. And I believe this is the remaining funds, or half of the remaining funds. I don't recall exactly which portion of the remaining funds this is.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Elizabeth Martineau, this amendment is actually one half of the difference between the 21-22 biennium and the 23-24 biennium. There was a high of $46 million that had been appropriated, and so we took that difference between the 17.5 million in 2021 and the 46 million in 2023, and then just divided that by half to get the difference of the increase they've had.
Mr. Co-Chair?
Yes, Mr. Co-Chair.
If I may explain the methodology there. So in the previous budget, we increased the budget for the Wyoming Business Council by, as it was described there, a considerable amount. And a lot of those funds have been expended or obligated. And so I believe that that amount was excessive as far as that increase in the 25-26 budget. So I'd like to reduce that, but I'm only going after the final year here of that increase. So they still have their overall budget, their funds that they have obligated, and they will have some unobligated funds as well.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? There is a second. Discussion. Discussion. Okay, yes, Senator Grove.
Thank you. Sorry, it's on the sheet I was just handed, it says page and line, and it doesn't have a number. Can you give me that page number? I'm trying to scroll through it right now.
Mr. Richards.
Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, we don't know the page in line because we don't have a budget bill yet. So at the appropriate spot. So it's the Wyoming Business Council.
Okay, I'm looking.
Business
Okay,
Ready
I'll
Community
scroll.
Program.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
I do,
yes, Senator Grove.
well, I'll stop looking and start talking. I understand these things are always a bit of a stretch. I always look at these and I look at research at University of Wyoming and, you know, where we spend millions of dollars and sometimes things work and sometimes things don't. And that's why, you know, we research and learn and try. And sometimes, you know, the Business Council, you know, I look at the good former speaker and I think back to all the projects, all the different times that we've tried to do economic development. We've had probably more misses than hits, and I'll admit that freely. But actually, in the past couple of years, I think these folks have really tried to put it on a good path. And I just hate to see us cut this one, because I think that as we do this, then it's pretty hard for me to walk out to my constituents and say, we want to diversify this economy. We want to try to do this. We want to try to do everything we can to build our businesses in this state. And I think it's harder to say that when we turn on some of these projects. I understand it's expense, but you know, that's what business is. You invest and you try and you do. And so, you know, they've been working hard, and I think they do a good job. I think they've worked well, and I've seen them do things that I think that could put us on a good path in the future. So I'll be a no. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other discussion? Question being called. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Carried. Mr. Richards?
Mr. Chairman, I think the next agency for potential consideration is Agency 91, the Stablecoin Commission.
Okay. Let me go to Representative Sherwood first. Thank you, Representative Sherwood. I need that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm short enough already.
Thank you for that giggle. So in Agency 91, I'd like us to reconsider the footnote. This was on page 39 of the engrossed budget bill from last year. The footnote that we overrode the governor's veto on, I would like to add the word endeavor to, the phrase endeavor to, back in, so that it would read, the Stable Token Commission shall endeavor to contract with only Wyoming domiciled entities. Thank you.
There's a second. Discussion? Co-Chairman Bear.
I will just say this. I have always been supportive of the idea of a stable token. I cringe when I think of the unsupported methodology of cryptocurrency, but the idea of a stable token is, I think, the wave of the future. I have differences with the direction it's going right now, but hopefully we can at some point have a stable token that is backed by precious metals. That is my hope. And so I want to continue supporting this. And unfortunately, there's one company that doesn't quite meet all the criteria yet to accomplish the things that need to be accomplished right now. There's another company that may and intends to re-domicile here in Wyoming. That's encouraging. So the word endeavor, I think, should steer this in the right direction, but I do want to keep it moving so that we can eventually get to that non-fiat currency in the state of Wyoming.
Okay. I want to get this right. I'm going to take a 5-minute break. We'll bring this meeting back to order. So we have a amendment. Is there any discussion? Yes, Senator Smith. Friendly, is there a second to that? There is a second. So let's vote on the amendment to the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, carried. Now we're on the main amendment. Any other discussion? Question being called. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, carried. Mr. Richards.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the next two affect multiple agencies that we're aware of. There is some desire to have a conversation about a B11 position, and this impacts multiple agencies. If there is an interest in raising it, I would provide further background.
Okay. Co-Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. So during the interim, the executive, under concern for the Charter School Board, Direction Board, and Selection Board, added a position without this body's approval. And I think as a legislative body, we have to protect our authority and the balance of power. And so I don't think that this position should have been installed without the approval and funding of this body. So I am requesting that with this motion, that we remove this position and defund it for the remainder of this particular budget. Now, I am in support of charter schools, and we did fund a position that could manage this board. So now we have two different managers, basically, of this board. I think that's probably going to create some conflict. And I do support the position, actually, down the road. I think that the board does need a director. I just don't think we're at that point right now where we need a director. And I also think that it's something that we as a body really need to enforce our authority. Thank you.
Is there a second to that motion? Second. Any discussion? Mr. Richards.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, and members of the committee, I wanted to explain what you'll be seeing in this because it affects a number of agencies. You did not appropriate these funds. I think they were in the amount of $431,403. The position originated from the Department of Corrections. If we just delete the position, there are dozens of other positions in the Department of Corrections, and this cycle could just repeat itself. There's no money in the budget authorizing the $431,000 to remove from the budget. So our proposal for the language, which I believe makes the intent of the co-chairman, is to put a prohibition on the governor's office for filling any position of this type or expending school foundation program funds for the period of the biennium for this purpose. So you won't see any immediate savings because you never appropriated any money, but it will, I think, achieve the intent of the sponsor.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? Senator Guru.
While we wait, so we're waiting for a sheet with the language to come in? Or is that, or wait till we vote and then they're going to write it up that way? I'm sorry, I just make sure.
Mr. Richards?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this one came a little late and we did not have an opportunity to prepare language.
Okay, so I understand the desire and I agree with it in principle, but, and this is the but part, the governor, I'm sorry, the chief executive, our friend on the first floor, takes great exception and uses his pen mightily when we, in his view, legislate in the budget. Footnotes aren't his bag. And he allows them to a certain extent, a small extent. On the same token, he likes to have authority over pots of money for you know, whether it's fires or opportunities to do other things. And we like to hang on to the purse strings, and we like to be able to make those decisions. There's a give and take here, and like I say, I've joked with this governor and previous governors and say, well, we'll give you $10 million of unfettered spending authority for each footnote we write. And would that work out? Or how, is there a way that we can try to work on this together? So it's kind of this little back and forth that we get into. And so I'm going to be a no on this, because when we go down and really push hard on the governor to accept our footnotes and try to understand the logic that we press, sometimes we have to be a little more accepting on the other side, and, you know, sometimes a little sweeter than a little less of the hammer. That's from the person who sent messages this week. I'm trying to mend the error of my ways. So I'll be a no. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Grew. I think everyone on the committee understands that this is a long road. This has to go through both chambers. There's going to be tweaking along the way. So, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Carried. Mr. Richards.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the last amendment we are aware of relating to agencies also crosses numerous agencies, 5 different agencies in your budget, and there's interest in identifying the roughly 24 positions that the prior budget had directed the governor to find and remove, and you saw that language during the review of the governor's vetoes, and we'd happy to provide a handout if the member wants to consider this amendment.
Co-Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Ms. Scott, would you mind passing out the spreadsheet that shows the positions, just so the body has an opportunity to look at that before they vote? So, as was described by Mr. Richards, I move that we delete these 20, it turns out to be 26 positions that I found that are vacant, for a total of $2.220424 million. So again, that's $2,220,424. It was the intent of the legislature in the last budget to ask the governor's office to do this. It was vetoed. This is probably the best method to override that veto. And I will tell you that when you look at this sheet of paper, you'll want to look at the middle column where it says months open. So I was very careful to ensure that I got positions that had been open for an extensive period of time. The shortest is 34 months on line 991. But you can see we have some that are over 100 days or 100 months vacant. So these are positions that I don't think these departments are going to be suffering without them. And I think it's time that we clean this up.
Did we get a second? There is a second now. Discussion. Senator Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chairman. I see the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 positions are other funds. Can someone explain to me what the other funds are? They're not general funds, they're coming from something.
Mr. Richards.
Mr. Chairman, and I'd be happy to defer to Polly. She was the one who prepared this, but you're referring to many of the funds or the positions in Agency 24, which is the Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources. Several of those are for archaeological positions, and when there is a project, it could be an industrial project, it could be an oil pipeline, it could be a road. The sponsor of that project pays the Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources to hire their in-house archaeological staff to do the analysis. Those positions, as you can see, have not been used widely, but that's kind of the flow of the funds. The private entity, typically, I suspect it could be YDOT. If, a road is going through a sensitive area or something like that, they would pay state parks to hire an archaeological review of that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, absolutely.
So if we eliminate these, are we now going to go out to contract this, or do we hold the project up? What's the net result? I get they've been open for a long time, but obviously they've been used. What's the net result to us?
Mr. Chairman, the net result is you would not have, the state parks would not have the opportunity to have a full-time employee. The contracting would still be an opportunity.
Mr. Chairman, one more follow-up.
Yes, please.
So in truth, there's no savings to these other than on paper, we look like we're saving something, but they've been open because they're not used, but they would be funded if they needed them.
Mr. Chairman, in this case, yes, the only savings would be FTE count for the state.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, please.
I'd like to move to divide this and take those first positions out of it.
Which,
It'd be all the first, well, it's all the ones that are other funds.
okay. Is there a second to
And
that?
I guess we have some of the aging as well, I'm sorry. We have some down at the bottom in the aging. Mr. Chairman, can we get those explained to us as well? Because I may do the same with them.
Okay, if someone, I'll give staff a minute here. Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am getting some clarity on this one. My understanding is that these positions in state parks are only hired when they're needed. And what triggers the need to hire them as AWACS are energy projects on federal lands. And so if we have a development project that requires, say, like a NEPA review, then these positions are filled as AWAC so that those requirements can be met and that energy project won't be delayed. So thank you for triggering my memory on that.
Okay. Okay, Senator Grew and then Representative Pendergraft.
So, yeah, just to follow up on that. So we say these have been open for 100 months and they come from other funds. Well, as we know, we just transitioning from one administration who didn't look as kindly on energy projects on federal lands to one that does. So it seemed like this might have been a better motion 100 months ago than it is today. So that would be my question as well. And I guess just on another note, it's just like, from the last conversation we just had, this is the other side of the coin, what we did last year. And I remember the amendment because I wasn't wild about it, but I ended up, I think, voting for it because what it was, the attempt was to say, okay, ask our chief executive, to work on finding these positions because he's in the best position to know across the great labyrinth of state departments, which would be the 24 that would be the ones to go after. Mm-hmm. And so now if we're gonna take that back and pick and choose, I got a feeling not gonna be a big wild guess on what his reaction's gonna be to that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have Representative Pendergraft and then Senator Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question would go then to the last 4 items from the Department of Health. I would assume that that's maybe a little different situation, so I'd ask for an explanation on what those other funds, how that operates. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
Representative Pendergraft, these are positions in the Department of Health Division of Aging. Good examples of this are likely in the Wyoming Retirement System, or Retirement Center, located in Basin, Wyoming. A good percentage of their funds comes from other revenues, meaning payments made by the residents for the support of those services.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, so let me just, I want to get to Senator Smith, but a quick question. Co-Chairman Bear, would you consider this a friendly amendment?
I would be opposed to the amendment, but I will call it a friendly amendment.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'll support that.
Senator Smith.
Mr. Chairman, I'll tell you why. The state parks is running to mean, and we're gonna see increased development on our lands, our state lands that are stewarded by the federal government. Like what the good lady from Albany County said down here, it's just a fact. I don't want to see those in this.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Driscoll.
Clarification. So the amendment is to divide and take out all of the other fund ones and restore, and leave them intact.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure, because we got the aging ones as well, and I wanted to make sure we catch them in motion as well.
Co-Chairman Bear.
Just a little discussion here. I'd like to call on Mr. Hibbard if he can tell us, does the department have any archaeologists on staff?
Mr. Hibbard.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm Kevin Hibbert. I'm the Director of the Wyoming State Budget Department. I will give you an example of how this works. Really what we're dealing with is a spending authority. And I'm sure that they have some archaeological staff members that are not in question for this vacancy report. In my service at the Department of Transportation, we would be putting in maybe an interstate, maybe it'd be a primary, maybe a state road, depending on where it was. The contractor's out there and they're digging and they find a bone. They need to identify, is that bone a human bone? Is that bone a dinosaur bone? Is that bone a Petco bone? When those decisions are made, we hire the parks archaeologists to come in and do that. And then we would do an ARS, Authority to Render Service, which is just a basic spending policy, spending authority to where the Department of Transportation would reimburse the state parks for that situation that they found themselves. Now, that very same situation can happen just about anywhere else. It could be on a pipeline, I mean, just, you can imagine. So that's how this really works, is what we're talking about is having those in reserve, so when those situations happen, then you create a billing event and then you recover those funds.
Okay, Representative Angelos.
Yeah, and I just, having a husband that worked in the oil and gas, they do use these positions on oil pads, pipelines. They'll call them in quickly if something's found, so it would delay any kind of energy development if that's going on, so.
Okay. Co-Chairman Bear.
Just one last word. I heard pretty clearly that we do have archaeologists on staff, so there would be opportunity for this body to act at some point in the future if it was necessary, but I'm ready to vote.
Yes, I am too. Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I looked over this earlier, I thought I saw a number of archaeologists around there. Are there others still in the hopper, so to speak? In other words, could one of those positions be used to replace this position, or have we taken all of them out of the mix?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Hibbert.
These positions are afforded to the state parks when we find ourselves in a situation where we have more issues at hand than what available staff can complete. So we're positioning ourselves for the ability to bill for the effort when we can't cover the effort ourselves. And that I hope that satisfies your question.
Okay. Let's, the first vote will be obviously the Senator Driscoll amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Show of hands, all those in favor? Okay, those opposed? Okay, the Driscoll amendment passes. Now we're on the Representative Co-Chairman Bear's amendment. Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to offer an amendment to the amendment.
What is your amendment?
I see here 3 senior archaeologist positions. I would like to preserve one of those and let the other two be cut.
Is there a second to that amendment? Second. Okay, there's a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Driscoll.
on opposed, it's just a feel-good deal. They're not filled, and they're filled by other money. And I guess if it makes us feel good to cut something that's not there, I guess go ahead and do it. But to have it there, it may be needed, and we're not going to be in session when it comes. And to me, to just cut something so we can tell people we cut positions for fun doesn't really have any real effect. So I'd be opposed to it. Let's leave it alone and try not to damage what's there. I get saving money, but this doesn't save money. It just makes us feel good.
Other discussion, Senator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I'm confused. I thought we took off all the other funded positions off of this amendment. And so he's trying to add one more on, or what's up?
Co-Chairman Bear.
My understanding of the motion is to go ahead and leave one on and remove two.
Okay, any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm still lost.
Senator Driscoll.
Mr. Chairman, I'm following Senator Larson. Is we just left them all alone, and now we've got a motion to,
I think you
I don't know. I'm not sure I understand the motion either. I'll let.
Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you. I don't want to cause a big kerfuffle, so I will withdraw my amendment to the amendment.
Okay, the amendment's been withdrawn. So we're back on the Bear amendment. Any other discussion? Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a real quick, if we could have a clarification from staff. Obviously, I understand that we removed those agency 24 items, but then I know that there was some in 48. If we could just have a clarification of exactly which ones we did pull off with that amendment, I'd appreciate it.
Co-Chairman Bear first.
I'll just do this real quickly. If you see on the left-hand column, it gives you the line number from the original document that listed all of the vacancies from the December report. What is going to be affected by this motion at this point is lines 979, starting at 979, and continuing on down to 1064. All other lines would be excluded. So we're voting on 979 through 1064.
Okay. Does that help, Representative Harrelson? Senator Senator Driscoll.
He's clarified. That's what I was going to.
Okay, good. Okay, any other discussion before we vote? Okay, let's vote. All those in favor of the Bear amendment say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carried. Mr. Richards, you have anything else?
Mr. Chairman, the next item, we're now moving into section 300s. I think the first one for your consideration is the Senator Larson amendment, which was modified by Representative Angelos relating to wildfires. And I think there are a number of potential comments on that amendment. So recall where we left it was $100 million from the LSRA directed to the Wyoming Business Council for purposes of loans with a 2% interest rate, 1/2 of that, or 1%, to be retained by the agency for administrative purposes. And I'd be happy to prod some additional amendments, but I think there are several on this.
Okay. Who's up? Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, we're getting this down. Good job. I would like to, and we can take this in parts or in whole, I would like to move the administration of the loans to the SLIB board, so through Office of State Lands and Investments. But I would like to make sure that it is upon the recommendation of the Wyoming Wildlife Natural Resources Trust, and that the loans would require collateral And I would love some help with that language there. So again, moving the administration of the loans from the Business Council through the SLIB process with recommendation of the Wildlife Natural Resources Trust.
So is there a second? Second. Discussion? Senator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to vote no on this. I'm very worried that the wording may come out that we don't have loans. And being that it might be headed toward the SLIB, then the SLIB would get to decide who may be getting grants. And I think that could happen very easily with a line item deletion. So I'm very worried that we don't stay with loans, and I would like it not to go toward SLIB where that board decides where dollars go.
Okay, so you oppose the
Very,
amendment?
very worried that we're getting rid of the word loan.
Okay, other discussion, Co-Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. I too have that concern of Senator Larson's, but the line item veto would be able to strike the word loan just as well as it could strike how the loan is administered. So I think the language is appropriate to work with the chief executive in a way that he'd like to administer this and yet have the staffing and the proper trained personnel to administer it. And I think if there's a line item veto, we're just going to have to work to convince our colleagues to override that veto so that we can maintain this loan. It's really going to come down to that in the end. And I think it would be maybe friendly to the good senator, don't know if it's friendly to the bringer of the amendment, to strike the recommendation of the Wildlife Trust Fund requirement. So I'll move that.
Second that.
Okay, there's a motion and second. Representative Sherwood?
I don't consider that friendly.
Okay. So we have the Co-Chairman Bear amendment first. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the Bear amendment say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Okay, that amendment fails. We're back on the Representative Sherwood's amendment. Any other discussion? Co-Chairman Bear.
I would ask just for the clarifying language. I think Mr. Richards might have some language as far as the suggestions, if you will, on collateral.
Mr. Richards.
Mr. Chairman, and I have never spoken with a sponsor, so if I'm misrepresenting, please advise. But what I have heard just generally, that the collateral not be limited to land and could include livestock and structures. And then I also heard some discussion about putting a term in. So right now, the term, meaning the length of the loan, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years would be up to the agency. If you wanted to put in a maximum term of the loan, 100 years, now would be an opportunity. That's what I understand in terms of the collateral, that it would be inclusive of land, structures, livestock, machinery, and equipment.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Larson.
I'd put a term in there, 20 years.
Okay, that's an amendment?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Okay, is there a second to that amendment? There's a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the Larson amendment say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Carried. Now we're back on Representative Sherwood's amendment. Any further discussion? Let me go with Representative Sherwood and then the Co-Chairman Bear.
Thank you. I wanted to thank Mr. Richards for that language. I do intend that collateral not be limited to land, and that through the process of administering the loan, that collateral could be agreed upon.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Co-Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Co-Chair. Mr. Richards, did we add language in the original amendment, the Larson Amendment, that restricted this from fencing? Did we do that? I remember we had a discussion.
Mr. Chairman, the fencing option is still on the table, meaning it is in the language.
I move to strike the fencing language, since this is going to be a loan. If a rancher needs to replace fencing, he could do that with a 2% loan.
Okay, is there a second? There, yes, Representative Harrelson.
Just a clarification, did we pass, is that right, what you just said? As far as, right now, fencing is not an option.
I think that's.
If this were not to pass, I mean, forget this.
Mr. Chairman, fencing is an option currently.
So there's no need for this amendment because it's still currently an option.
Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, fencing is an option. I'm not sure whether his motion is to remove it.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes, so it is unnecessary.
Thank you.
Okay, amendment
Withdraw the
withdrawn. Okay, other discussion, Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don, I had sent some language that I don't know if you had received that I'd like to look at, not just wildfires, but any, let me pull up my language here.
Natural disaster.
Yeah, any natural disaster. Let me see, I sent it to you here. So, any natural or catastrophic event, for the purposes, we could even put a catastrophic event, means fire, earthquake, breached dam, or other natural man-made event causing monetary damage to a farming or ranching operation. I'd like to add that language in there. I think we could have
Can you
others.
repeat that again, please?
Absolutely. Somewhere in the language in here, we'd like to add in that this could also be used for catastrophic events. Catastrophic event meaning fire, earthquake, breached dam, or other natural or man-made events that cause monetary damage to farming or ranching operations.
Second?
Okay, second, did the staff get that? Okay, any discussion? Senator Driscoll. Okay. Noted. Mr. Richards.
Mr. Chairman, just for the benefit of the committee, you've had several amendments to the amendment.
Yeah, I know.
I just want to give you a status of where I believe you are.
Thank you.
We have Representative Sherwood has the underlying primary amendment to move the administration to SLIB at the recommendation of the Wyoming Natural Resource Trust Fund, requiring collateral not limited to land. We had Representative Larson's successful amendment to limit the terms to 20 years. Also clarification that the collateral could be agreed upon with the administrating party. And now Representative Angelos is amending Representative Sherwood's amendment to be inclusive of natural resources, just as a
That's my
recap.
understanding.
And I do find that friendly.
Okay, any other discussion before we vote? All those in favor of Representative Angelos' amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carried. Now we're back on Representative Sherwood's amendment. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? All those in favor of Representative Sherwood's amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carried. Mr. Richards.
Mr. Chairman, we're in the home stretch, I think.
Thank you.
The next item we have knowledge of is a member wanted some discussion of the previous matching funds that the legislature has appropriated to the governor's office for purposes of energy matching, infrastructure matching, and large project energy matching funds. And if the member wishes to visit about that, I think we do have a written amendment at the desk.
Okay, we'll take the amendment first. Co-Chairman Bear.
I move that we reduce the energy matching funds by $100 million in the three aforementioned funds. And I'll have Mr. Richards explain how much from each fund. And upon a second, I'll describe why I want to do this.
Is there a second? Okay, there's a second.
While we're waiting, Mr. Coachman?
Go ahead.
While we're
Coachman
waiting,
Brown.
I just want to give a brief description of why I think it's important that we minimize the funds that are out there for these matching funds. To date, these funds have been used for carbon capture and sequestration, which I believe is important for enhanced oil production. But other than that, we're dependent upon federal programs to make any kind of funding. It's not a natural market. And I'll give an example. These funds were used to match with a $40 million grant from the Department of Energy with a company called Frontier Carbon. And the state obligated $10 million for this project. Frontier Carbon committed $1 million for the project, and they have 0 customers to date. So this system is really dependent upon pressure from the federal government to dictate that CO2 be sequestered. And with the incoming administration, I'm not sure that's going to happen. So I think we should move away from a carbon negative position as a state, and we should use funds like this, which there will still remain funds, to enhance and promote our core industries of coal, oil, and gas.
Mr. Chairman?
The committee will take a 5-minute break.
Thank you. That's what I was going to ask.
John? Okay, I'll bring us back to order. And we have an amendment in front of us. Are there any discussion, any points of discussion on anything else? Anyone want to bring anything else? Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make an amendment to the amendment, if that's friendly, to the co-chair. I would like to exclude section 325 for large infrastructure projects out of that decrease.
Okay, is there a second? Second. And co-chairman, do you consider that a friendly amendment?
Mr. Co-Chair, that would be a friendly amendment if we can keep the total at 100 million.
Okay, so that's a friendly amendment. Let me go to Mr. Richards first, and then Senator Driscoll. Yes?
Mr. Chairman, if you only address the regular energy projects, not the large energy project, and the infrastructure matching, the maximum you could achieve is 82 million.
Okay, Senator Driscoll.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chairman, if it's a friendly amendment to add oversight and cooperation with Management Council to release these funds.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
Second?
Is that friendly, Mr. Co-Chairman?
Is that friendly?
Friendly.
That is a friendly. I'd like to bundle these if I could, in just one amendment then. Representative Harrelson?
Mr. Chairman, I was just saying, I don't think we can have more than one amendment at a time on the table, so if we bundle, I believe we probably fall back into purview. I just wanted to deal with one at a time.
Okay, we'll deal one at a
Actually,
time.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if they're friendly amendments, they're bundled.
That's what I
And so
thought.
as long as they're friendly, it adds the original
Right,
amendment.
and you
so-
consider both those friendly. Co-chairman Bear.
Just another piece of clarification from Mr. Richards. Okay, the infrastructure account, which the Department of Transportation uses to get matching funds, that would be the 325 account. If we exclude that from this amendment, what is the maximum amount from the other two accounts that could be achieved?
Mr. Richards?
Mr. Chairman, I believe there is some confusion because we had multiple Section 325s over successive years.
Okay.
I understood that Representative Angelos' removal of Section 325, when she was referring to it, was the large energy projects, the 100 million for large energy projects. Did I misunderstand?
Representative Angelos?
Mr. Chair, yes, that was a misunderstanding. I want to use the portion of 325 where they use it for infrastructure for projects that YDOT uses. Sorry, I was not clear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In that case, you can still achieve the 100 million by bumping up the reduction to the large energy projects. You are only taking 15 million out of that infrastructure. So if you would increase the $55 million cut to large energy projects to $70 million, you would still achieve the $100 million.
Co-chairman Bear?
As long as the amendment is worded in that way, that we would take 70 million from large energy projects and the remainder from the other account, 323, I believe.
Okay. Other discussion? Again, it's my intent to bundle these. Other discussion? Okay, so we are bundling the Angelos amendment and the Driscoll amendment to the Bear amendment. Everyone understand? Senator Garreau.
Okay, let me take a whack at this. So we're still on a 100 million total cut. We're taking out the part though that deals with the Department of Transportation, and we're giving an oversight to the Management Council.
Correct.
Do I have that right?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All those in favor of this amendment, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Carried. Next, Mr. Richards.
He does not want to do
Okay.
this. Mr. Chairman, I think we only have two left. We still have a chance here.
Please go ahead.
The committee marked up the Wyoming Innovation Partnership and removed all of the funds. I believe it was $5.2 million request for the final year, FY26 funding for the Innovation Partnership. And I believe the governor requested a study, and the committee left in the study with no funding. And I think there were some members wanting to revisit that study.
Mr. Co-Chair?
Co-Chairman Bear.
I move that we reinsert the $200 million for the study portion.
How much?
I'm sorry, $200,000. Thank you. We're throwing a lot of millions around here tonight, today.
Okay, you've heard the motion, is there a second to that? Is there a second to that? There is a second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carried. Mr. Richards.
Mr. Chairman, two final comments, one motion and, well, potentially two motions. First of all, we may not have every member's motion, so I don't want to presume that there was others outstanding. Our last motion is for the budget balancer. This may need to be fluid, and when we come back to you next week, this is one number to change. We also want to be mindful of the bills on the floor, as well as potential activity in the budget. The governor recommended a $116 million extra transfer from the LSRA to the general fund to fund all of his requests. I believe you have saved $195,261,721 through the actions of your prior 4 days. There's also been some bills move, tax relief, for example. Our initial suggestion would be to reduce the governor's rec of transferring $116.9 million to transfer $70 million, just as a starting point, and that would leave the floors some funds to address things, as well as, quote unquote, pay for the actions of bills that have already moved.
Co-Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Mr. Richards, how does this affect Wyoming statute? I think it ends with 1013, paragraph D, where we have to stay, or the governor's rec needs to stay within 5% of the balance as of the end of July 1st of last year.
Mr. Richards.
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chairman Bear, that statute does not apply to the legislature. However, in my history, all but once, the legislature has imposed it upon itself. And for good reason. That 5% provides cash flow. And I will tell you, we are very close to having no cash available today. This is the worst month for us, because I've advised previously that we pay others first. We pay the University of Wyoming, the community colleges, the local governments first, and we get our revenue late in each fiscal year. So this would restore that amount to $152.55 million, which is the 5% statutory reserve. This is going to change over time, but just as a placeholder, around $70 million for discussion.
Senator Guru.
And I know this is just going to be a guess, but when you say how much was left for the floors, do you have a ballpark number for me?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Guru, that may be a better way of doing it, frankly. If you wanted to just identify how much you want to leave for the floors, we will fill in the amount of the necessary transfer. That would be a better approach. Thank you.
Follow-up?
Yes, go ahead.
What in the last couple of years, remind me, I'm a little fuzzy, what have we left for the floors last couple of years?
Mr. Richards.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I hesitate to comment that the floors will add or subtract from your budget. I don't know that. And last year, for example, the Senate reduced the JAC budget, and the House added to the JAC budget. Traditionally, they don't like zero, because then every member has to go find a source of revenue. And it's not just the budget bill. There are many other bills out there from your committees, your own ideas that may deserve, consideration. But traditionally, 30, 40, 50 million is common.
Okay, Co-Chairman Bear.
Just a little bit of clarification on that part of the conversation. So I don't know if there are other tax relief bills that are significant, but we do know House Bill 169 is significant. Was that baked into your calculation when you suggested the 70 million from LISRA?
Mr. Richards?
Mr. Chairman, House Bill 169 was included, but that 70 million would just pay for everything in your budget and the tax relief in House Bill 169. And I think there are a couple very small bills that have also moved through.
Follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. So if we add a $50 million leeway, do we need to borrow more from LISRA?
Mr. Chairman, yes, and in fact, it's a transfer. It's not a borrow. It's, yeah, you would be spending. Or you could leave it at the 117 million, for example, that the governor recommended, and that 117 is about the, 50 million away, rough numbers from the 70 that you need to balance the budget. So that gives you about the right.
Let's take a timeout. Okay, bring this back to order. Co-Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to recommend that the body, I'm moving that we limit our reduction of LISRA to 70 million and ensure that we've got the spending policy in place to keep the cash flow where it should be.
Is there a second? There is a second. Is there discussion? Is there discussion? Mr. Richards.
Mr. Chairman, we can accommodate that. Your prior motion, we had not fully appreciated on the large matching projects. Some of those funds were appropriated from the LSRA directly. Some of those funds were appropriated from the general fund directly. So net, you saved $100 million, but it's not all going to come out of the general fund, which will also affect this transfer amount. So it really would be useful if you gave us a number to leave for the floors. You can do it the other way, but Senator Guru mentioned a really, and if you wish to just say $70 million transfer from the LSRA, my concern is it might not be enough, but your total spending is lower, but it might be out of the LSRA itself, if that makes sense.
Okay, I think we need clarification. Co-Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. So my question would be, how much of that 100 million is coming from LISRA?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, at least 70.
So I'd like to amend my motion.
What's your amendment?
I would like to, in addition to the 70 million in LISRA, I'd like to leave the floor 30 million flux.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, there's a second. Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and if that's the number, that's the number. My suggestion was going to be to take the governor's recommendation at 116.9, whatever. And that gives us just a little bit of wiggle room because there are some bills floating out there. I know charter schools bills, there's a couple other bills that have some big ticket items. And my experience has always been when we go down to the floor, when we tell we can direct and we can ask, but if we put the floor in a position where they have to say in every motion they make, I want to remove this from the LISRA to fund this, you're going to get a pretty negative reaction. Let me just say that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mr.
I'm
Vice
fully
Chair.
supportive of that as we look at it. I think going to the floor with a zero balance is going to be pretty interesting, to say the least. I support where Senator Drew came down at as I think it over.
Okay, so we have an amendment to your amendment. Do we have any other discussion? Okay. Question. All those, now, am I able to bundle this, or do we have to go individually for, yeah, okay. So the first vote will be, explain your first one, Co-Chairman.
Allowing 30 million for the floor.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carried. Now to the second part. Can you clarify that again, Mr. Co-Chair?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. This would be restricting the LISRA withdrawal to 70 million.
Okay, everyone understand? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Carried. Mr. Richards, do we have anything left?
Mr. Chairman, you do not. Staff traditionally announced that you have made many motions over the past 4 days conceptually. We will do our best to incorporate those languages with your direction, but you will have an opportunity next week to ensure that we have done so. You will take your final vote next week after you've seen the written product.
Okay, any other comments? I will adjourn this meeting.